Hello everyone, this is Jason Bales for YouTube channel I Think Therefore, and I'm doing a video. It's an introduction to lucid dreaming and astral projection for Christians. And really the reasons why I'm doing this is because whenever I was growing up I had a lot of really odd, exceptional experiences, and one day I went to talk to my mother about a couple of the experiences, and she said these things come from the devil, and it was very, very discouraging for me to hear that from my mother, and I wondered where exactly these ideas might come from. And I knew that she went to Catholic school growing up, but she wasn't living a very Catholic or Christian lifestyle, but these ideas were still in her head, and I was wondering exactly where they might come from. And it's sort of hard to narrow it down, but in this video I'm going to focus on a couple of people, one being Jerome and the other is Thomas Aquinas. Now, Jerome intentionally corrupted the Bible. That might seem like a bold statement, but it's actually truth, and you can go look it up. In the Old Testament Hebrew, there was a word indicating malefic magic, and Jerome deliberately mistranslated that word 3 times as dream interpretation. Now, it can't be said that he didn't know the real meaning, because he correctly translated it in other places. But in his mistranslation, he placed dream work alongside augury and necromancy. That's how awful he wanted dream work to appear. Now, devout Christians had no reason to doubt this, the infallible, unaltered Word of God. But if we trust Jerome, we have to curse the prophet Joseph as one of the wickedest men who ever walked the earth. I'm not willing to do that. After Jerome, there was another man who did great harm to Christian dreamers, and that man is Thomas Aquinas. Now, Aquinas did not treat dreamers as necromancers. Instead, he chose to view dreams as entirely useless. Now, how Aquinas was able to reconcile the uselessness of dreams with a supposedly Christian faith is beyond me. Nevertheless, Aquinas' work was widely accepted for several hundred years and is still taught broadly today. Now, so we know where Christians might get negative ideas about dream work, but what is the real Christian view on dreams? In Numbers 12:6 we read, "And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream." Now, from the Old Testament through the New, we're told of important visions and dreams. The early church believed strongly that dreams were important and vital to spiritual growth. In 415 AD, St. Augustine wrote a letter to a friend named Evodius. This letter contains a plain discussion of the soul, astral bodies, spirit guides, precognitive dreams, and cognition while asleep. That's lucid dreaming in modern terms. Now, these topics seems to have been suggested previously by Evodius in a letter that Augustine couldn't find. Evodius had previously written concerning a young man who had passed away, but who still visited fellow priests in dreams and in visions. And in response, St. Augustine writes, "Taking occasion from this young man's case, you propose and discuss an extremely obscure question concerning the soul, whether it is associated when it goes forth from this body with some other kind of body, by means of which it can be carried to or confined in places having material boundaries. The investigation of this question, if indeed it admits of satisfactory investigation by beings such as we are, demands the most diligent care and labor, and therefore a mind absolutely at leisure from such occupations as engross my time. My opinion, however, if you are willing to hear it, summed up in a sentence is, that I by no means believe that the soul in departing from the body is accompanied by any other body, by another body of any kind. Further in the letter of St. Augustine, St. Augustine relates the experience of a friend. You know our brother Gennadius. You know him as a man of religious character and of very great benevolence, actively compassionate and promptly liberal in his care of the poor. Nevertheless, even he, when still a young man and most zealous in these charitable acts, had sometimes, as he himself told me, doubts as to whether there was any life after death. Forasmuch, therefore, as God would in no wise forsake a man so merciful in his disposition and conduct, there appeared to him in sleep a youth of remarkable appearance and commanding presence, who said to him, "Follow me." And following him, he came to a city where he began to hear on the right hand sounds of a melody so exquisitely sweet as to surpass anything he had ever heard. When he inquired what it was, his guide said, "It is the hymn of the blessed and the holy." What he reported himself to have seen on the left hand escapes my remembrance. He awoke, the dream vanished, and he thought of it as only a dream. On a second night, however, the same youth appeared to Gennadius and asked whether he recognized him. To which he replied that he knew him well, without the slightest uncertainty. Thereupon he asked Gennadius where he had become acquainted with him. There also his memory failed him not as to the proper reply. He narrated the whole vision and the hymns of the saints which under his guidance he had been taken to hear, with all the readiness natural to recollection of some very recent experience. On this the youth inquired whether it was in sleep or when awake that he had seen what he had just narrated. Gennadius answered, "In sleep." The youth then said, "You remember it well. It is true that you saw these things in sleep, but I would have you know that even now you are seeing in sleep." Hearing this, Gennadius was persuaded of its truth, and in his reply declared that he believed it. Then his teacher went on to say, "Where is your body now?" He answered, "In my bed." "Do you know," said the youth, "that the eyes in this body of yours are now bound and closed and at rest, and that with these eyes you are seeing nothing?" He answered, "I know it." "What then," said the youth, "are the eyes with which you see me?" He, unable to discover what to answer to this, was silent. While he hesitated, the youth unfolded to him what he was endeavoring to teach him by these questions, and forthwith said, "As while you were asleep and lying on your bed, these eyes of your body, now unemployed and doing nothing, and yet you have eyes with which you behold me and enjoy this vision. So after your death, while your bodily eyes shall be wholly inactive, there shall be in you a life by which you shall still live, and a faculty of perception by which you shall still perceive. Beware, therefore, after this of harboring doubts as to whether the life of man shall continue after death." This believer says that by this means all doubts as to this matter were removed from him. By whom was he taught this but by the merciful, providential care of God? Now, St. Augustine thinks such experiences are provided by God. They are not satanic and certainly not meaningless. St. Augustine believes these dreams are godly, again affirming God sends his